Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and I got 5 blockbuster trades that the Raiders could do this season, and I'm also going to tell you why. Now, often I talk about trades on this show, and I started doing it because a lot of people like to talk about them, and I don't always create a lot of the deals that I end up breaking down on this show, but today I have constructed 5 different trade ideas that I could paint a picture of why and how it's going to happen here for the Silver and Black. Here's the one thing that I want you to do, though, okay? I'm going to give you my 5 trade ideas, but I always say that this show is built on the backs of the nation, and I'm going to be making videos. Seriously, I'm going to make videos around the trade ideas that you guys create. So some of the best trade ideas from this video here, I'm going to make videos around. So if you could, drop a comment below of a Raiders trade that you think could potentially happen this upcoming season. Let's go through this, and the way that I'm going to do this is a little bit different. So I have different trade scenarios based on before training camp, after training camp, right before the deadline if the Raiders are buyers, right at the deadline if the Raiders are sellers, and I'll kind of walk through why I did what I did. So the first deal up here is actually with the Chicago Bears, and it's a trade before training camp gets underway. For those that do not know, training camp gets started here for the rookies July 21st for the Silver and Black, and then veterans report July 23rd. If you're the Raiders and you're going to make a deal before training camp, it's probably with a position that you already know what you have. And for the Raiders, if they end up making this deal, I think it's because they're a little bit uncomfortable with a certain position group. So the trade that I have before training camp, it's this one. The Las Vegas Raiders, they get Khalil Herbert. The Chicago Bears, they receive a 7th-round pick in 2025. For the Raiders, a lot of these deals that I'm going to be making, they're going to be cheap deals because the reason why Khalil Herbert's getting featured up here is because he could be potentially cut candidate. And according to Vic Tafur from last week, the Raiders could add a running back before training camp. So you got a beat reporter saying that they could add a running back before training camp. It does add a little bit more competition to a weak RB room because, like, let's face it, you look at every single position group that we have, maybe minus quarterback, some people would argue, but like wide receiver, stronger. Tight end group, stronger. Offensive line group, better. Defensive line, better. Linebacker, better. Like safety, cornerback, from top to bottom, the weakest room that we have on this Raiders team is the running back room. So therefore, the only position that I'm legitimately going to trade for right now, unless it's like a legit starter, if I'm going to trade for just a depth guy right now, it's going to be to the position group that I'm the least most confident in, which is the running back room. Now, why would the Bears make this deal? The Bears would make this trade because they just signed DeAndre Swift this offseason. They drafted the other running back out of Texas, Roschon Johnson, round 4 of the 2023 NFL Draft. And then also on top of that, Herbert's got 2 years of experience with Luke Getsy. So if the Bears are like, well, they're kind of in the situation, they're like, well, we might just end up cutting Herbert anyway, so we might as well get something for him. That's when the Raiders swoop in and see if they can get a deal done. Now, here's the one thing I can definitely promise. I can't promise that any of these trades are going to happen. And hopefully you enjoy the trades that I'm breaking down here because, again, we're just trying to have a little bit of fun. But I promise, if the Raiders make a trade, we're going live here on the show. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure those noties are turned on because we get really wild when a trade goes down. Some of the other reasons here, though, why I think a Khalil Herbert move does make some sense. Last season, he was the main carrier at the running back position for Luke Getsy. So, again, a little bit more familiarity. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get that one out in this offense. But Herbert also has been a complimentary running back in a past Luke Getsy offense, which is kind of what I think how the Raiders would use him here. David Montgomery would be the Zamir White. Khalil Herbert would probably be the Khalil Herbert. Alexander Madison could just be in that mix there a little bit, and then you end up throwing in Dylan Laube, Amir Abdullah, and we've already heard the Raiders really want to be able to use running backs a little bit more in the kick return game. So somebody to keep in mind. And like his first few seasons here, they've been pretty damn good. 5.7 yards per carry his first year with Luke Getsy. I'm just saying, Khalil Herbert and the Getsy offense has looked pretty damn good. Let's now go to a trade after training camp. And this one I got with the Cleveland Browns. And the reason why that I see this trade potentially happen after training camp is the Raiders hit that panic button. The Raiders hit the panic button at the quarterback position, and they go, wow, Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew have been bad at minicamp. They've been bad at OTAs, and now that they've been bad at training camp, and we want to get another quarterback into this rotation, we want to get a QB that we want to see a little bit more out of during the preseason, because you got 3 preseason games. So you know what? Let's talk about this deal here. We got Dorian Thompson-Robinson. You get him from the Cleveland Browns for a 7th-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. A quarterback that a lot of people that watch this show were pretty fired up about when he was first coming out of UCLA. Now, I know that Aidan and Gardner did struggle, but the reason why the Raiders would make this is because if they are legitimately really hitting that panic button on this Luke Getsy offense. And, one thing that DTR gives the Raiders, a lot more athleticism at the quarterback position. On top of that, went to Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas. This was a player that DTR did come in for a private visit with the Raiders last season, or it might have been a top 30 visit on top of that. But somebody from UCLA, he's got some good relationships with current Raiders players, and he's always in Las Vegas. The last 3 times I've been out to Vegas, I have actually ran into Dorian Thompson-Robinson 2 out of those 3 times. But why would the Browns do it, right? Well, the Browns have Deshaun Watson. They signed Jameis Winston, plus they also got Tyler Huntley. And one of our really good buddies here at Chat Sports who covers the Cleveland Browns told me that, they're unsure if he fits with new OC Ken Dorsey. So if you don't know if he's going to fit with your new offensive coordinator, could be a position for you to move on from him. And then for the Raiders, it's a clear upgrade over Anthony Brown Jr. Carter Bradley, it has been Carter Bradley. But you can add a quarterback who's only going into his 2nd year into the NFL. And if you're somebody that does legitimately want more competition at the quarterback spot, and again, you're only trading for DTR if Aidan and Gardner are yet again really, really bad at training camp, because that's what's been reported thus far this offseason, that neither quarterback has looked good. So this is going to be the pinned comment here on today's show, because I figured that this one would be a little bit fun. Who's the best quarterback out of this group? Let's say right now, Raiders trade for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Who would you want to be the quarterback for the Raiders this upcoming season? Would it be Gardner Minshew? Type GM. Would it be Aidan O'Connell? Type AOC. Would it be Dorian Thompson-Robinson? Type DTR down below. Let's go to the next trade here. This trade is before the season starts. So the Raiders, they go through training camp before, after. Now this one is after the preseason. And the only way that you're making a trade before the season starts, again, is if there's that little bit of the panic button. We got to get something done here. For the Raiders, their preseason games are at Minnesota on August 10th versus the Dallas Cowboys. And for those that do not know, this entire week here on the Raiders Report, I'm going to tell you all how you guys can enter in to win Raiders Cowboys preseason tickets. They are in section 139, row 36, seats 11 and 12. You got to be watching our live shows if you want a chance to win some free tickets. But then the Raiders, you got to get 53 players by 8/27, and then that first week game is against the Chargers. If you're Las Vegas, you make your cuts here. You wait to see what other teams have made their potential cuts, and then what you do is you got to get somebody in for practice about a week before that Chargers game. I'll tell you what the trade is with the Philadelphia Eagles here in just a second, but we do got some new Raiders jerseys, and they're available to y'all at chatsports.com/Raiders jerseys. So earlier during our live show, for those that do not know, I am filming this on July 8th. Shout out to David Rubio. He was like, Mitch, what the heck do I get for my first 2 Raiders jerseys? If it's up to me, I'm getting a Max Crosby jersey. I really, really want to get a Mad Max jersey this year. Also, I'm somebody that, I want the old school jerseys. You know what I mean? I want a Bo Jackson. I want a Charles Woodson. I want a Howie Long jersey, a player that that is a Raiders legend for life. Now, again, David said that he got a Brock Bowers jersey. And if you want to get our rookie jersey, it's available to you. And if at any point you're watching this show a month from now, you're like, I'm getting ready to go to a Raiders preseason game. I'm getting ready to go to a Raiders regular season game. Make sure you get yourself a Raiders jersey. Whether it's a white jersey, a color rush jersey, a black jersey, we got them in big and tall. Hundreds of jerseys available at chatsports.com/Raiders jerseys. Those links are going to be available to y'all down in the comments and in the description of today's show. All right, so let's go to this next trade here. I got James Bradberry coming to the Silver and Black. The Eagles receive a 7th-round pick for him. So you're already seeing early on, and I know I say blockbuster trades to start this show off, and the blockbuster trades are about to happen. These are just more of like some deals that could potentially end up going down. But if you're the Raiders and why you would decide to do this trade, it's because you missed on signing a free agent corner. Let's just say that you were trying to get a Stephon Gilmore and Xavier Howard and Adoree Jackson. I mean, think about how many corners we have talked about this offseason. And the Raiders, let's just say, missed on all of them, okay? You missed on all those corners. So then the Raiders go, well, we didn't like what we saw in training camp, and we didn't like what we saw in the preseason from a Jacorian Bennett, a Brandon Facyson, a DeCamerion Richardson, an MJ Devonshire. And the Raiders go, well, now we actually know that we are a cornerback away from really being able to go out there and competing. So who's the one person that if you're the Raiders in this situation you would look at? It's probably somebody that has a little bit of familiarity with your defense, with your defensive coordinator, and that's James Bradberry. Now, let's be real. He was horrendous last season, okay? No way around it. He was really, really bad. Dude looked washed. Dude looked cooked. But then again, I write down a lot of stuff, and I can remember a lot of the notes and a lot of the things that people are saying about James Bradberry are very similar to what people were saying about Casey Hayward. And then the following season, Casey Hayward joins Gus Bradley, a defense like he knows like the back of his hand. James Bradberry knows the Patrick Graham defense like the back of his hand. Casey Hayward goes on to have a Pro Bowl season. What if Bradberry's just in a situation that he's just got a lot of unfamiliarity there and doesn't know who he's working around? Like Marcus Epps was on this Eagles defense, goes away. Bradberry, I know he was with the Eagles for another season, but the players he was playing with on that defensive side of the football were totally, totally different from 2022 to 2023. Now, why it makes sense for the Philadelphia Eagles is just simply because the trade in general is only going to cost the Raiders $1.2 million if they were to do this. It's not going to cost Philadelphia a lot of money. The Eagles, they drafted Quinion Mitchell. They got Cooper DeJean. They have these new corners that they're going to get some work. And if you're Bradberry, you're going to be 33, 34 years old. Why not try to go with somebody and just try to resurrect your career in a situation where you can start and be on the outside? Not saying he's going to start, and the only reason why the Raiders would do this is because they missed on signing corners in free agency, and the guys that you were hoping that could take that next step, some of those younger players, were unable to do it. Let's go to the next trade here. Now, for the Raiders, you're going to be in a situation, just like most NFL teams. Are you going to be a buyer, or are you going to be a seller at the NFL trade deadline? The first trade I'm going to show you is if the Raiders are buying. And if the Raiders are buying at the NFL trade deadline, that means that we're winning football games or, we're at least positioned in a good spot. And for the Silver and Black, the trade deadline being on November 5th, which, by the way, the fact that the presidential election, November 5th, and the NFL trade deadline, November 5th, it's going to be a shit show of a day. The Raiders play the Bengals on November 3rd, okay? A good measuring stick. A good measuring stick, because then the week before that, you play Kansas City. So you're going to know how good of a football team you have. And then the Raiders, they have Week 10 bye. So you technically have the 4th and the 5th to figure out some of those extra spots that you need. And then you have that entire week if you do end up making a trade where your player who you do trade for can get acclimated. So the deal that I have here, if the Raiders are buying at the deadline, I'm saying let's go try to get somebody like a Marshawn Lattimore from the New Orleans Saints. This also takes two to tango. This also means that I don't see New Orleans being very good this season because you're not going to trade away Marshawn Lattimore if you're in the hunt of it. If the Saints are bad, then guess what? Then they're not going to, if the Saints are bad, that's the only way that this deal is going to end up going down. So the Raiders, you miss on signing that free agent corner. Your current cornerbacks, I do think, could potentially be that Achilles heel, and the Raiders would have to give Lattimore a new contract. The Silver and Black need a legit outside corner. You need somebody that can go out there with Nate Hobbs, can go out there with Jack Jones. And now, if Jack Jones and Hobbs go out there and they show out, maybe you don't need to give Marshawn Lattimore, you don't need to trade for him. You don't need to give him a contract because you're probably going to have to end up paying those guys. For New Orleans, though, they traded up for Kool-Aid McKinstry. Hell, I can literally remember exactly when they did it because it was right in front of the Raiders. New Orleans also has a lot of young talent at the corner spot, and for Lattimore, who's got no more money guaranteed on his contract after this season, he wants a new deal, and he's going to get a new deal from some team. So, if you're New Orleans and you don't think that you're going to be able to pay him this offseason, you might as well trade him at the deadline and get something in return for him, a player that is one of the best corners in the NFL when he's healthy. And I do think the mentality, the swagger, you put Marshawn Lattimore, Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones in a secondary with Trevon Merrick, with Marcus Epps, with this defensive line, dude, good luck, man. That's the best defense in the NFL. That's the defense that can carry you into the playoffs. Now, I still got one more trade coming up here in just a second, but I got to give a shout-out to the new subs, and I really, in the month of July, want to do a better job of just saying, hey, if you're taking time out of your day to hit that subscribe button, helping this family grow, I'm going to give shout-outs here. So if you want to see your name on a show, hey, you got to be a new sub. Hit that subscribe button. Let's go to the final trade here, and this is one if the Raiders are selling. And let's be real. If the Raiders are sellers at the deadline, okay, there are two players that teams are going to have interest in. The first one, Davante Adams. I'm not putting Davante Adams in a trade just because I believe Davante that he actually doesn't really want to go anywhere, that it's a lot more to him than just the football aspect side where he does want to be a Raider. He loves being a Raider. He wants to be closer to his family, and he's just at that point of his career. But, like, his contract could potentially be an issue, and the Raiders are probably going to have to restructure it. The trade, though, that I'm going to end up making is this one if they are sellers at the deadline. And the Raiders, you're going to get a second-round pick. The Commanders, you get Kolton Miller, our left tackle. And this was not an easy trade for me to do. It wasn't an easy trade for me to pull off. But again, if you're selling, then sometimes it's smart to sell. For Kolton Miller, he's got $0 million guaranteed on his contract after this season. So, like, if I'm Kolton Miller, I'm going, I want a brand new contract. The reason why the Raiders would trade him away is what happens if Kolton's injuries just kind of continue and they linger, and you're not sure if he's going to be healthy, you're not sure if he's going to be able to go. The other reason why you could potentially do it is if the Raiders have confidence in Thayer Munford to play left tackle, or even a guy that they signed this offseason, Andres Pete, which I do think is something that people need to keep on their radar because guess what? The Raiders do have a lot of confidence in Munford, and they do think that he can play left tackle. I also think it's something that, you got to read the tea leaves here a little bit of. Could also be a reason why they drafted DJ Glaze in round 3 because they believe that he could potentially play right tackle. So when you look at the versatility of this Raiders offensive line, it's a lot deeper than what it actually gets credit for. And Kolton Miller is a top 10 left tackle when he's 100% fully healthy. But the injuries have started to pile up here a little bit. Yes, he's a team captain, but I've also said that Andre James has more weight in terms of being a team captain on that offensive line than what we've seen in years past. Plus, the Raiders have upgraded their offensive depth just in case something does end up going down. Now, why the trade makes sense and why Washington would do it, the Commanders desperately need a left tackle. I actually do like Cornelius Lucas. I think he's a lot better than what gets credit for. Now, he has not played a lot, and he's been a player that I've actually talked about trading for in years past because we've needed a tackle. But then also, I don't want to trade Miller to anybody in the AFC. You send him away to the NFC. On top of that, and maybe this is me looking into it a little bit too much, but there would be a part of me that goes, Antonio Pierce sends Kolton Miller to help his buddy Jaden Daniels. And Jaden still has a very good relationship with AP, still has a very good relationship with Marvin Lewis, and that those guys want the best for Jaden. So in a win-win situation, you trade away your best left tackle to help out one of their best players, somebody that you are very, very close with, somebody that you watch grow up. And in return, you get a second-round pick that can help you potentially go out and get a guy next season. So I threw 5 trades at you, okay? And the way that I want you to do it, if you think that the before training camp idea is the best one for Khalil Herbert, I want you to type 1 down below. If you think it's the one for DTR and the Cleveland Browns, type 2. If it's James Bradbury and the Philadelphia Eagles, type 3. If you like the one with the Saints and Marshawn Lattimore, type 4. If you thought the final trade where we send Kolton Miller to the Washington Commanders is your favorite, I want you to type 5. And please, please remember that if you haven't yet, comment your trade ideas below. I get a lot of trades on IG. I get a lot of trades on Twitter. And I really wanted this offseason to say, you know what? I want to see what you guys have to say. And I'm going to give my honest opinion. I'm going to react to it. And I'm going to post it on this YouTube channel. I'll probably also post some of my favorites as well on social media at Mitchell Renz 365.